Welcome to episode number 63 of The Great Reset. My name is Robert Brill and I'm the CEO of Brill Media.co. We're an advertising firm helping companies achieve business results with the best paid media, data, and targeting available in the marketplace. We're here 5 days a week talking about marketing and advertising for senior marketing executives, entrepreneurs, and anyone who looks to grow their company. Today we're talking about hyperlocal data and hyperlocal advertising. When we found our footing at brillmedia.co, we positioned ourselves as a hyperlocal advertising company. This type of targeting became prevalent in about 2013 and onward as location data became part of the data types that were being collected in the programmatic advertising ecosystem. In this video, we'll talk about what hyperlocal data is, how we use it, and the tools that we use to deploy it. Hyperlocal targeting uses location attributes to capture primarily mobile phone information to understand where a person is in the physical world, where they have been, and the behavioral segments that their location visitation is telling us about. Most commonly, location data uses latitude and longitude data to identify where in the world a person is. At the core, this targeting is very powerful because we can see with precision where an individual is, where they shop, where they bank, where they spend their days, and where they spend their nights. As you recall in prior videos about how data is collected, these data sets are not in fact used in the raw. We do not have personally identifiable information. Among other things, this means that data is aggregated and sold in an ecosystem of companies that refine the data and package it so it's useful. By the time we get access to the data, we can target people based on places they currently are at the moment, where they've recently been up to the past year, and based on combination of places and demographic information. Hyperlocal targeting is different than general location targeting in that places we can target are smaller. So for example, it's common to target ads to a country, a region, a state, a county, a city, or even a zip code. The ability to target people because they walked into Bank of America represents a whole other type of opportunity for advertisers, which we have deployed with lots of success. During the data collection process, data is refined and bad data is thrown out. In some cases, up to 70% of location data that's collected is not used because it paints an inconsistent story about the user. Some examples of this are when the same mobile device appears in two dramatically different locations in a short period of time. Like for example, if my phone shows up both in LA and New York within an hour of each ping, there's something wrong. Don't use that data. Mobile devices that show coordinates for a place that is unlikely for a person to be also get swiped. So for example, if a person shows up with their mobile phone in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, its chances are that that person is not actually in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and that targeting data is also wiped. What's interesting about hyperlocal data is the way in which it's used. When we look at location data, we are looking at latitude and longitude coordinates collected from the mobile device. The more decimals in the data set, the more granular the data is. With 4 decimals in the data set, we can see down to the land, street, and parcel area. At 6 decimals, we can see down to the human level. It's incredible. The targeting is robust and super viable for driving performance on advertiser campaigns. Here are 7 use cases for hyperlocal advertising. The first is radius around a location. Let's say you own a Mexican restaurant and you know that generally speaking, people will travel 2 miles from any direction to travel and eat at your business. This is reasonable in a densely packed urban area like Los Angeles or New York, but in suburbia, maybe it's 5 miles. You can turn on a radius and serve ads to people who are in that 2 to 5 mile area around your address. Targeting can then be filtered. So for example, if you're a Mexican restaurant, well, you can target people who are likely to be interested or have in the past expressed interest in Mexican food if they are within the 2 to 5 mile area. So that's really valuable for restaurant targeting. Number 2, let's look at look-back targeting. This is especially valuable right now since places are shut down. Let's say you want to get people to come back to Vegas. You may be MGM Casino or Topgolf or some other establishment that you want to rev up business for right now. Since people haven't been there for a while, one great way to use location data is to target ads to people who have seen in Vegas over the last year. By deploying a look back window, you have the ability to target ads to people who have been to Vegas recently. So literally, if your mobile device was seen going into the MGM or another casino in Vegas in the last year, and you can also filter out to people who don't live in Vegas, you can then say we can target people who are past visitors, recent visitors to Vegas. If you want to get more granular than that, you can say anyone who's been to the Top Golf in Las Vegas over the last year, they should be seeing our ads. And then you can filter ads to, let's say, Los Angeles, which is a feeder market to Las Vegas. Or you might go national, or you might target another geographic area. We'll go into targeting details about mobile device tracking in another video, but in a simple term, your mobile device, it has a unique identifier, sort of like a vehicle identification number. And this VIN number for your mobile device is being tracked. It's tracked in many databases, and various data sets are stored in many databases. So the idea is one database might have your mobile device identifier tied to your purchases, so your MasterCard data. Another database might have your location pings from Facebook. Another database might have your data tracked for whenever it sees Pandora tracking on your phone and ties your mobile device back to the types of music you listen to on, let's say, Pandora or Spotify. So many companies are tracking all of us with various anonymized identifiers. The target doesn't know our name, our address, our phone number, but it does know that device number ABC123 went to Vegas in the last year and is part of the targeting criteria for this campaign. So now let's take a look at behavioral targeting. So behavioral targeting has long been a powerful signal for advertisers to reach consumers with. Behaviors in the location space are set up to look at the combination of factors for where we go and create custom targeting recipes based on these data sets. And the custom targeting recipes might be developed at the data level, or it might be developed within the trading desk or at the advertisers. So the folks who are on the platforms who make decisions about who to target may create a custom data recipe for an individual campaign. So if I'm a gym goer, which I'm not, but let's say I go to the gym. And what I mean to say is my mobile device is seen at the LA Fitness 10 times a month. And let's say I also like to eat healthy food, which I don't. But let's say I also like to eat healthy food. MasterCard knows that I am one of the people, or Catalina, which tracks shopper cards in supermarkets, knows that my record number is a frequent purchaser of healthy foods such as vegetables. I would be in a targeting group for an advertiser like a kombucha drink. Let's say they want to reach healthy consumers. And by mixing the two data sets, being able to say anyone who goes to a gym 10 times a month and also is known to buy vegetables at the grocery store, that's my target audience. That lets us hone in on who the user is and target them based on their past behaviors. Now let's move to out-of-home targeting. Out-of-home advertising is a multi-billion-dollar industry in the US in 2020. And a really great way to extend the shelf life of out-of-home targeting is to pair it up with mobile targeting. We do this by serving up ads to people who are near our out-of-home locations. And when that consumer has left, we serve ads to the very specific group of people who saw our out-of-home ads when they're back at home. So let's say you have an out-of-home ad at some specific intersection in Los Angeles. Let's say Ventura Boulevard and Hazeltine, or Havenhurst. And anyone who is seen at that location is eligible to see an ad when they're within 1/8 of a mile around that out-of-home placement. But we're also capturing, or the data companies are capturing, the mobile devices. And when that group of people who are employed there, people who go to lunch around there, when people who drive by there, when those people go back to their office or go home for the day, they will be in the targeting set so that anyone who saw our out-of-home ad on Ventura and Havenhurst in Los Angeles will also have the ability to see their ad on mobile and desktop when they go home, when they're on their favorite blog or news site, for example. Now let's move on to location data analysis. Recently, we worked with a quick service restaurant, and they want to know more about how far people travel to the restaurant. This information would go in to inform our targeting. So in the first example, we said we knew that people traveled anywhere between 2 to 5 miles to go to the Mexican restaurant. The question is, how do you know that? Well, you can do an analysis of location behaviors. And this is a chain with many locations, all serving different parts of one city. And we worked with a data company to analyze mobile device data for people who were seen inside the location of each store. So again, we're capturing the mobile device data of people who are seen within the perimeter of each store location. And we do an analysis. Where were the people before they came to the store? Like how far did they walk or drive or take public transportation? And then secondly, right after they left, how far did they go? The result was a mix of data sets. For some locations in more urban areas, the people traveled up to 2.5 miles. For other locations, people traveled 5 miles. And in addition to distance traveled before and after reaching our client's restaurant, we also got really granular demographic information. So this data included household income, education level, home ownership, and even life stage. And even when we look at visitation data, we had it in quartiles. So we can actually understand, 50% of people traveled 1 mile to get to our restaurant, but then to get 100% of people, we have to go out 20 miles. But we don't want to target that fringe group of people who are traveling 20 miles to our restaurant. What we want to target are the majority of the people who will travel 1 mile to go to our restaurant. So all of this data is based on device IDs and then pairing it up with granular and also anonymized consumer data. So number 6, perimeter targeting. These campaigns are about finding people at specific places in the world, down to the specific entertainment venue or retail establishment, and reach them after they've left. So if you think about the bustling theater district in New York City, when it rebounds, one of our campaigns up until about February of this year was set up to target people who went to specific Broadway shows. We wanted to identify wealthy tourists. One thing that wealthy tourists do when they go to New York is they go see plays and musicals. So we captured the device ID. Again, the data is stored outside of our company and other data companies. And after these people saw their show, we served them an ad while they're in New York City. And the ad was to go to a restaurant, and then we tracked people down to who saw the ads and then were seen at the restaurant. And then we captured, we knew the average order value. We drove tremendous return on ad spend for this campaign. Client was very happy. And number 7, brand or store type targeting. So let's say you have an online cannabis brand or you have a retail cannabis brand and you want to really hone in on cannabis consumers. Cannabis is legal in California, recreational cannabis consumption. So one really great signal is to target people walking into cannabis shops. If a person walks into a cannabis shop, you can bet they're either interested in cannabis, they work there, or they're a consumer. Simply targeting cannabis shops in states where cannabis buying is legal, and then serving up ads for either a competitive store or your e-commerce product works really well. This tactic works well for really any competitive brand. So for example, let's say I'm Haagen-Dazs and I want to sell ice cream. If you want to reach people who buy ice cream and you want to expand your audience, you can target people who walk into Cold Stone Creamery. So location targeting is a particularly interesting type of data because we get insight into the daily movements that people make. And some of the companies that are part of the location targeting ecosystem include Factual and Foursquare, Placed, Place IQ, Ninth Decimal, The Trade Desk Media Math, Vistar, and there are plenty of others. RTBIQ is another one. While we don't see consumer level data because that's the job of other data companies, we are able to target anonymized groups of consumers with a really valuable signal because after all, where you go says a lot about who you are. That's it for today's episode of The Great Reset. We'll see you tomorrow.